the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog Fantasy. Tambo is in studio with me for the Week 4 DraftKings Picks. The lineups, the injuries. In a makeshift studio that has a little bit of bouncy audio because of the nice little wallpaper behind you. It's not deadening the sound like it normally would in our studio, but we're in Montreal. We're here for the President's Cup, but we're here to build some lineups too.
Yeah, going to talk all things Week 4. Excited to get back to it. Week 3, not the best for me, but excited to get back into Week 4, and there's a ton of options on the slate, so looks good.
Well, you almost had a big night on Thursday night.
Last night was close. That Aubrey kick at the end would have been nice, but we live and learn. We move on. We escaped with an $80 loss, Pat, so we moved on quite nicely.
Did you play 150 in it?
No, I only played like 75 last night.
Okay, so an $80 loss isn't so bad. It's basically a dollar a lineup.
Yeah, it was not bad. We'll take it, and we had a close call.
Yeah.
So it's all we play for. Get the sweat.
The entire injury cheat sheet, the updated rankings and everything will be coming out on Saturday. I'll have an accompanying show with that as well. But just sign up in the newsletter. Code Mayo at shipitnation.com will get you 10% off. Same ditto for Run the Sims, where I'm going to pull the optimizations from this week. And I think that's everything. I just want to talk about lineups. I'm excited to talk about lineups. I missed you last week.
Yeah, it's always good. I thought I was going to win a bunch of money last week. Not in, but the key here is, Pat, we're also not in the studio, as we said off the top. So maybe it's in studio that it is, and it's not just not on the show with you.
Did your DraftKings update to en français?
It did not.
Neither did mine.
Okay, good.
But if that's the case and you're in Quebec right now and you're coming from somewhere else because you wanted to hang, wanted to watch the President's Cup, whatever it is, use code Mayo and Underdog right now. Get yourself a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. There's also a Patrick Mahomes free square this week that you can take advantage of. Over under 0.5 yards for Patrick Mahomes this week. What's your take?
Yeah, pretty sure it's going to go higher.
Boom. Code Mayo. Get yourself in the game. Running backs. Is it just as easy to say, hey, let's run back Cam Akers again, and hopefully he mysteriously finds the end zone in the weirdest way possible?
The injuries say yes, but do people want to? I know they were really worried about him last week. He did get a touchdown late in the game, so people were like, oh, save the chalk. But it wasn't like he had some big boy score that people were excited about. So do you think people rush to go back to him, or is there other better spots?
I don't know if there's better spots. I think there's expensive spots, and that's fine if you can find the places to pay down. Like Deontay Johnson, I assume would be absolute stone cold chalk again at 5,600, but he might not play now.
Yeah, well, that's, again, we'll see. I found this pricing to be soft at running back. Like even Breece Hall, 7,800. Now he looks like he is getting a little bit of ownership at home, big favorite. The amount that he's been involved in both the rush attempts and the passing game, even with Allen there, he still looks like, just an awesome value at 7,800. But nobody really got a price boost. Taylor had a huge week last week. Could have had a third touchdown if Sermon didn't get in. He's 7,700. Kamara still only 7,600. I know he let some people down last week, but I mean, he's right there. There's just a ton of good options, and the pricing seems pretty soft overall.
This is the first week, according to the 10,000 simulations, that Jordan Mason actually has a negative optimal score.
That's interesting because he's actually popping up, I think, as the most high owned.
Well,
so
that's
far,
why.
as of right now, yeah.
He has the second highest optimal rate of the week.
Oh, I thought you were talking optimal rate at first. I love what Justin puts out. When he puts out the sheet using the site, he's showing this off.
But it confuses a lot of people.
I thought you were talking about optimal rate, and that's crazy. But it's because he's so high owned over what his actual optimal rate is for the leverage score, basically.
Exactly. So it kind of flips it. Like Bijan and Mason are the two that just rate out way above everyone else in terms of the optimal rate. They're all above 22%. Then after that, it's like Kyron, Breece Hall, Barkley, Brian Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Kamara, Zach Moss, Aaron Jones. Like those types of players are all 10 to 15, but those two stick out above everyone else. And right now, Jordan Mason projected ownership 30%, Bijan 15%.
Yeah, Bijan's way down there versus the other. And that game's kind of sneaky. I think the Saints and Falcons in Atlanta, I mean, both wherever it was going to be is going to be in a dome, but it's in Atlanta, so nice. And they're just a small favorite at home, but Bijan only 7,400. Looks like he's coming almost half the ownership of Mason right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing the exact same thing. Like, do you want to go to that game, though?
I'll take pieces from it for sure. So the thing about this slate is just overview quick, and we're going to get to everything, but like the main games, obviously Washington, Arizona. So when we get to quarterbacks later on and start talking Daniels and Kyler Murray and everything that goes with them, we get why. San Francisco, 10.5 point favorites at home. That's where the Jordan Mason stuff comes in again. But other big totals, Cincy, Carolina. We're going to talk Dalton and Burrow. I know that one's come up on some shows this week. And then Jacksonville, Houston. Not as many people are going to be no one wants Trevor Lawrence for sure. Stroud, I definitely think gets a little bit of love, but that's kind of another game. If you don't love it, Jacksonville, Houston, New Orleans, Atlanta, and maybe mini Green Bay are kind of where I want to pull these little secondary stacks when we get to them.
Main stack, Panthers, Bengals?
It looks like, yeah. I mean, I think even the Dalton Love will go there again because if
Other side.
that's what we're going to do, but I'm saying I think for where people are going to go within that game is both sides. Because especially if Deontay Johnson does it, whether he gets ruled in or out, it doesn't really matter. If he's in, he fits the stacks.
I think that it does. If he's in, obviously, not only is he going to be mixed up in stacks throughout that game, he is going to be a one-off receiver everyone plugs in because of his price. If he doesn't play, he's like, are people really going to stack up Dalton with Leggett and Tommy Tremble?
Yeah, I think they are. And also Mingo and just the cheaper side of the stack allows you to fit everything.
It does allow you to fit everything, but these guys might be. Then why aren't we doing that with Hurts? Oh, well, let's use Hurts, Johnny Wilson, and Craig Calcutta.
Little bit different because obviously they actually have the other real dudes there. But I'm saying in Carolina, that is going to be there. This is where people confuse it. Are these what becomes their wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 are people that most would consider losers in the game of football because we're comparing them against the big names. Go look at all the rest of the teams. But in daily fantasy sports, it's a salary-based game. People did it last week. The Dalton, Deontay Johnson lineups cost $10,000 combined.
I think that there's
you got a quarterback and a wide receiver 1 for $10,000.
I think that there's a big difference between Deontay Johnson and the step down in actual talent from the rest of these guys.
There is, but it's so different because we do golf DFS and some people would relate to that, but it's like in a showdown slate, the 6K golfer gets 18 holes, the 10K golfer gets 18 holes. Obviously, you expect the 10K golfer to do better over the 18 holes, but they do get the same opportunity. Even though these guys are going to be worse than Deontay Johnson and Dalton's still the guy throwing it to them, the price factors that in. Like Mingo is like $3,600. Dalton barely got his price move. You're paying, what, $8,000 for a wide receiver and a quarterback? That's what matters.
Maybe.
Same pass attempts, probably. Same everything. Could go down worse in the game and actually get more pass attempts to these guys.
I think with all things being equal in this game, like if Deontay Johnson doesn't play, if he plays, I'm playing him. I assume that's just what everyone else is going to do. But if not, it just becomes Chuba Hubbard for me because I don't know where the ball is going.
That's fine too. He fits into the stack.
Like it could be Mingo. It could be Leggett. It could be who else is on their team? Alanis Marset, that guy.
You can do that for every team, though.
No, that is absolutely not true. If Deontay Johnson is playing in this game, he's going to have 13 targets.
No. I get that side of it. I'm saying when you're trying to name out the Alanis Morsets and losers on the other teams, like when you go to Philly, and it's way better for a team when someone's out and their target tree tightens. We want that for DFS. But even when you go to Philly last week with Devonta Smith, with Noah A.J. Brown, you got Devonta Smith, you got Dallas Goedert. Like, it wasn't a surprise to me when Goddard had 10 for 170.
No, but this week with Philly...
But you could have named the Wilsons, the other dudes on the team, just to name them. But they're not really part of the plan.
No, but with Philly again this week, let's say Smith and A.J. Brown both miss the game, which it's starting to look like again. You have... Where does the ball go other than Dallas Goedert in the passing game?
It's going to be Barkley, Goddard. You're still starting with the studs that they do have there.
Sure, but Carolina has now their quote-unquote stud. They don't really have any studs, but their main guys are just all gone.
Right.
So now we have no idea where
their current main guys, though, are priced for what we're going back and forth on. Like a $3,600 guy, it's not as risky to take a shot on him. He barely needs anything to happen, and he could be a guy with a touchdown and 100 yards. For that price.
Or he just could have zeros across the board. As someone who played
it's so hard for them to have zeros. They have to throw the ball to someone.
I played 2 guys in my main lineup last week that had 0 points.
Yeah, I mean, the best plays can score 0 points. We've seen it. Or, Cam Akers needs a touchdown at the end to still not break double digits. Like, it's that will happen, but it's priced in. It's already built into it.
The other guy I would look at running back, just to take a look, we were talking a little bit off show, just Rachaad White. He's going to be very low on the ownership list. He's going to be very low on everything, but Bucky Irving went from limited practice to no practice. You said the report where you saw that he said he's going to play.
He said he feels great and should be good to go on Sunday, but that's him talking, and it's a hamstring injury, so who knows?
Yeah, we haven't seen anyone go on the injury report yet this season with a hamstring injury midweek and play on Sunday. It just hasn't happened. So just be aware of that going into it.
Yeah, I got that. And even if he does play, it's like that's still risky when you're coming. Any type of lower body injury like that, it's gonna be tough.
I think it gives you some access to I don't know if I'd want to completely stack up that game because like Evans and Godwin are both on the injury report. I think they're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. But if you did want to go like Goddard, White, and that's how you wanted to get access to this game.
I like a secondary stack in that game for sure. I think it's a good spot.
Yeah, unless you overload the Tampa passing offense, it's probably a stay away.
And also, too, to your point earlier, I know we're making fun of it, but I would say, like, if we did get a bunch of injuries on the Philly side, Jalen Hurts is still one of the best quarterbacks for fantasy.
I agree.
You can, and if you do take out pieces from his target tree, again, quote unquote, the losers, we're calling them, but I'm saying you're still got to trust some of those guys in these stacks just because he can get them the ball. they can catch the ball, and for the price that they're at, and with him involved, you're getting him and a receiver for 10 grand. That's a good deal.
That'll be good for are you doing the tidbits this week?
I'm not.
You're not? Yeah. It's probably going to be a bit tough. But
It's too challenging. I'm going to be at the course all day today. Like, it's going to be, hopefully the internationals can get some points back, but yeah, not going to put them through this week. Next week, I'll get back to it.
Do you hear Cuss sneezing in the other room?
Is it Cuss or is it Kenny?
It's that's a new game that we can play on the show. Kenny or Cuss?
Is it Kenny or is
Who's
it Cuss?
blowing their nose louder?
Kenny. It's definitely Kenny.
Oh, let's see here. Johnny Wilson's $3,800. Like, Dotson doesn't do anything on that team. He runs routes. That's all he does.
Until he does. Maybe this is what they brought him in for when everybody was injured, is what they really brought. I don't know. I haven't seen him do anything yet, like you said, besides cardio.
And the thing is, he's out there all the time.
He's definitely getting real cardio in.
The first game A.J. Brown was out, I think he played 90% of the snaps, one target.
Yeah, they want to get Johnny Wilson involved. Every time I see it, this practice report, or they show him before the game out there making sure he's ready to go. He's like 6'8", big dude. He can catch the ball. It's like, I could see it, but it's a little bit tricky. But depending on how it shakes out, I don't know if we're going to get the same Goddard game that we got last week. Last week was just such an awesome pivot on the same, like really it was leverage. Everyone was on Devontae Smith for good reason at 6,900. You just need to use your tight end. We've done this a ton of times, Dortch to McBride and situational stuff over the years doing this show, where if everyone was on Devontae Smith and everyone was on Kamara didn't have the best game, but that was the secondary stack in that game. Just go Kamara and him, or people ended up playing Barkley and Goddard somehow together.
Interesting.
But it's, the way it goes some weeks. But I think Goddard can have a good game, but 5,100 now. Don't think we're going to see the same as last game.
No, and a lot of his fantasy production came on one big play with 1 minute left in the game after Devonta Smith left.
Yeah, that was 70 plus yards, 69 yards, something like that. So it was nice, yeah.
So he got the bonus on that play, he got a reception on that play, and he got 60 yards on that play.
60
that's
plus,
That's like a 10-point play.
Yep.
Or more.
Yeah, that takes them 30 to 20. 20 we're still happy with, but it's like, again, you need that stuff to happen and go your way. That's fantasy.
Wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, as mentioned, did not practice on Thursday, heading into week 4. We'll see what happens on Friday. He was slated to be probably the highest owned wide receiver.
And I think, again, we'll wait and see what happens with him. But what's the other? I think there's another big one that just came out yesterday. Is now Dell is unlikely, right?
Yeah, Tank Dell has not practiced yet this week with, I believe it is a thumb and something else.
So we wanted to make him work last week. We don't get a chance to chase that one, but it looks like Nico Collins will get some love here.
He popped up on the injury report too, but he should be fine.
I think he's going to be
both
good.
the Tampa guys were limited. Marvin Harrison was limited in practice on Thursday too. That was a new one on the injury report. So just there's a couple of these, like, because this has happened almost every single week now.
Yeah.
Because before it'd be like, he popped up on the injury report, like, he probably just wants a day off, like, no big deal, do some cardio. But these guys are really missing games now out of nowhere.
Yeah, you asked me if my DK app flipped to Francais. No, but I did flip a bunch of Q tags. If you go to the wide receiver section and just see it, all these wide receivers are either out, doubtful, questionable, whatever it might be. So, yeah, there's a lot of injury stuff going on in the NFL right now.
Got to talk to Justin about this, but Greg Dortch simply is never a good play. Yet every simulation, and it's not just Run the Sims, it's everywhere. Like, projection models will tell you that Greg Dortch is an amazing play. He's not. He's terrible. And Michael Wilson is always a better play.
Last week, bigger week for him, though. 6 targets. So.
And what did Michael Wilson do? He had, 9 catches?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look him up, but Dortch at 4,300. That's what we usually go off of.
Yeah, Dortch is more expensive than Michael Wilson.
$100 more.
Who does actual things in games.
Yeah, Wilson caught 8 of 9, played way more snaps, and 64 yards. Yeah, so
not a lot of yardage. But the 9 is good for $4,200.
8 for 64 is a solid for $4,200. Yeah, we're taking that.
Points per dollar right now is Deontay Johnson. Rashee Rice, even at 7,300, is the second best on the slate in terms of points per dollar. All of this information will be in a graphical cheat sheet form in the Mayo Media newsletter, by the way, that comes out on Saturday evening. So if you just don't want to listen anymore, go sign up for Run the Sim, sign up for Ship It Nation. We'll see you later, and you can hit up the newsletter. We'll continue to talk through it. Christian Kirk is one of the top 10 plays, and so is Shaheed. I went all in on the New Orleans offense last week. That's where those zeros came into play for me. I could go back to it this week, no problem.
Yeah, you've been pretty good on your Shaheed calls, so one bad week.
Well, he's a guy that I play every week.
They were getting him. One of the tidbits was last week when I did do them was that he was getting more involved in the short routes as well. Like most people just assume big play Shaheed, and that's what all you're going to get. He has got a little bit more involved otherwise, so maybe continue to do that. I think he's interesting.
He dropped 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, he was more than fine. As I said, he was actually great. It was just that. So there's him, and then also waiting on the San Francisco stuff.
So Kittle looks like he is going to play. Debo's back at practice.
Yeah, I got to see what happens there because Jennings, again, not expecting that again.
But I think that all this news might make him a great play because it'll just take everyone off of him now. And then you have a gimped up Kittle walking around, Debo who probably re-aggravates his injury within 3 snaps, and then Christian Gonzalez locks down Ayuk, and it's just Jennings running wild again.
Yeah, and it's not even that I think he's going to be super owned because people never chase that. They don't go back to it because like they just assume the same thing. There's no way it can happen again. I always say a couple things. One, you don't need 3 touchdowns and all that for him. You don't need the 50-point game. He's still only $4,100 or sorry, went up to 5,600. So,
but I think that's what pushes. But
that changes it too. But I was going to say he doesn't need to get 3 touchdowns to make that price happen.
No, if he ends up with 6 for 80 and a touchdown, like
still solid.
He's got you there. You're hoping for more, obviously, but that's still a great game. The problem with him and his price point is if everyone has already built or building dummy lineups, he and Deontay Johnson are exactly the same price. So if Deontay Johnson is out, that's a 1v1 swap because people are lazy.
Yeah, and I certainly have interest in Ayuk still. I don't care what anyone says. Back to it. Like he had 10 targets last week. It went Jennings' way for sure. And it's like that's just part of it. But, watching Ayuk out there, he's still getting open. He's still available. They just, didn't get him the ball for the touchdowns. That can flip. And to your point of the Deontay Johnson Jennings stuff and the price point they're at, you got to go up $800 to get to Ayuk. And I just don't feel like people are going to be as excited about that, especially depending on injuries and stuff with Kittle coming back.
Shaheed's $100 less than Deontay Johnson. Pickens is $100 more than Johnson, who both rate out very well in terms of points per dollar. Christian Kirk at 5,200 is there too. You mentioned the Jags earlier. Kirk, Thomas, Trevi, Cam Akers. Feel like that's pretty cheap. Load up on some studs.
Yes, Trevor Lawrence is finally going to have the game, right? Because, we wait for it, and we say it with all the other plays. We're like, oh, the week 3, this will be the week this guy finally pops. It's going to be week 4 that Trevor Lawrence shows up after everyone says he's complete dust. I don't know, but that would be a stack. And that game does have some interest. It's the second tier of the total. Like it's a 45.5 point game. It's not the big one like the Washington, Arizona.
And everyone wants the Houston side.
Oh, for sure. Stroud side's super popular. So I think that's another way you could go about it if you wanted to stack it up the other way. I just don't think people will.
Tight end injuries, and Njoku has a chance. Oh, that's the one running back injury I didn't make note of. Like if you're looking for the cheapest running back of the week, it could be Donta Foreman, who's $4,300. Ford popped up with an injury and was limited. I believe it's a hamstring injury with him too. Like if he doesn't go Friday, he's not playing. Pierre Strong isn't playing for the Browns. It could just be Donta Foreman against the Raiders standing back there at 43. How do you feel like would he be... Like he's cheaper than Cam Akers was last week. It's a great matchup against the Raiders. You can run all over them. Of course, you know that they do not want to let Deshaun Watson throw the ball at all. Does everyone go to him?
The Raiders are favored at home against the Browns?
Yeah, I like the Raiders this week too.
Interesting. I think I'd like the other side for plus money. But yeah, the spot is fine. I think the price is fine. It's just, do you need that? But yeah, if you're going down there and you get it, I'd be fine with it. Yeah, $4,400.
Like, well, 43. But like even what you were saying with like Mingo or who those Carolina losers are, that this is the loser shot I would take at 43. Be like, yeah.
Well, so especially if the injuries come through, like if Ford's out and he's the guy, that's a way better value than any wide receiver that just gets plugged in. To your point earlier.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, I'm just wondering, like, do you think that he would? Because sometimes we saw it last week. Like, we knew that Mixon was going to be out. We knew that Pierce was going to be out all week. It was Cam Akers is $4,900 or $4,700. He makes everything work. And everyone jammed him in. Where this is happening late and probably hinges on either Friday injury report or even a game time decision of a late game that happens on Sunday. Do you see the ownership getting out of control?
It'll definitely pop up huge, yeah, because right now all the optimizers and projection sites, including my own, is going to have it so that Ford has all those points. Mm-hmm. And when those get shifted, the majority of it, as you know, with Run the Sim, same thing. When you switch this market share, then guess what? The projection goes up. They vault to the top. A lot of people run their stuff late enough in the week that, yeah, his ownership will get up there. The only thing to your point is if we get a game time decision and it happens that late, you may really get a break where he ends up getting to like 20% or 22%, and he'd usually be 40 or 50 based on the spot. And that is where you can take advantage big time.
You should be able to figure it out a little bit in order to, like, if he's a game time decision, you'll have like a lean either way of whether it's possible that Ford doesn't play or not. Like I said, maybe we know by...
It's an afternoon game too.
It's a late afternoon game.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I guess they're all afternoon games technically.
Yeah.
On this, I'm so used to the other side of saying it, but it's a late afternoon game. There's 4 this week instead of the 5 last week, which is nice. So I still like this split on the schedule, but I won't know for sure.
So the move would be,
If that.
there's obviously no running backs that you're going to be able to swap him in with at $4,300. So you put him in the flex, and here are some guys that you could potentially run out there. You could run Dortch, who we talked about, Josh Reynolds. No, Josh Reynolds doesn't qualify for that. Sorry. Michael Wilson would be one. Hunter Henry at 4,200 is also available there. That's kind of it.
It's not great for that, but if he's really your only guy left, then that's, I don't know if that's how you want to set it up. I think you're going to want to have more swap options. Like
Sure,
I want to get to, if for me, it'd be like the great example is what we just talked about. If everyone's going to end up being on a Jennings again late in the week because Debo's out or whatever it might be, then you could have it where you go down to Foreman and up to Ayuk if less are on that or something along those lines. Like I'm just looking for angles of using it to flip the build.
So ideally, like whatever construction that you build, if you want Foreman to be a piece, then maybe the play is to use him in one of the running back spots and use someone else in the flex that's swappable a 2v2.
Yeah, you'll look at your lineups to see where you have them, especially if you're hand building. You can actually build that type of stuff in if you want. But I think the bigger thing is that this matters more, or I like it better for the slate. I shouldn't say matters more. I like it better for the slate, me personally, if we get the news like Sunday morning right before the slate locks, like 40 minutes before the slate. We find out that this afternoon also this, or a Schefter overnight bomb, where yes, enough people will get to it, but there's so many people that won't swap for it. And that will allow the builds to flip, where everyone's leaving their builds with a cheap Carolina receiver, a cheap Philly receiver, whatever route they choose to go. We're able to flip the build and get a better value in it running back, get leverage on that because not enough of the field will adjust, and then be able to fit better receivers, better tight ends, better quarterbacks and stacks. It will change quite a bit.
Tight ends, there's a chance that Njoku can play this week. I probably wouldn't play him anyway because, Steven Njoku with Deshaun Watson. Kittle might play. Would you have interest in playing Kittle if he plays? Which it looks like he might.
Yeah, same reasoning, especially depends, again, if Debo's out, because that's just a setup where people always, go to the receiver. They'll go to Ayuk or Jennings versus at tight end. I have to use a spot there anyway. And we just saw the example of Goddard last week.
Would you use him in a single entry, high stakes, 3 max, that kind of thing? I don't think I would want to inherit that risk for a guy that might play 4 snaps.
I would use him anywhere. If I'm willing to use him, I'm going to use him. Like he's a real dude. He's not like I'm taking a risk on this play or whatever. It's George Kittle. We know what he is. He can get you a 0. He can get you 30. It's whatever's going to happen.
McBride is technically the highest owned of everyone on this slate. It's just I'm guessing he's not playing with this concussion.
Yeah, I don't even think he
hasn't practiced yet.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So yeah, I'm with you on that one.
So McBride is the most expensive. He's hurt. Kittle may or may not play. He's the 4th most expensive. Njoku's $5,000. He may or may not play with his high ankle sprain. And then Evan Ingram at $4,600 is, I believe, did he return? No, he did not practice on Thursday. So he's probably not going to play again either.
So does anyone want to play these expensive guys, or is it just people going to play Goddard and Tremble?
I'm guessing people are going to play Goddard and Tremble.
Because like Bowers, Kelsey.
I'm not playing Kelsey. Fuck that guy, man.
Sure. Bowers, though, even same thing. If you want to make everyone just loved him last week and now no one wants him. He's $5,600.
I like Bowers. Like, I'm just trying to find, like, Kyle Pitts, for example, is $4,800. He should be $2,800.
Yeah.
Like, if his name wasn't Kyle Pitts and you only went off his production of what he's ever done, he would be Jonnu Smith.
I'm trying to see some of these other guys here just to see, but yeah, I think it's crazy. So right now I'm seeing Tremble as a guy that people are playing quite heavily, and then I'm seeing Goddard just going back to the well on him after last week.
Goddard's the best points per dollar play of any of them. The projected ownership isn't crazy either. I have 15%.
Yeah, it'll get kept in check somewhat anyway, but I think it's interesting that like the points per dollar thing. There's no way Bowers, Kittle, Pitts, all those guys, they could still like the projection on paper is going to be a point difference, but the ownership's going to be 15-1 or something.
Right now,
like what's Bowers showing up for you? I'm seeing like 3 or 4%. So that's
I have Bowers at 3%, but I have his projection at 9.8 fantasy points.
Yeah,
Goddard's is 15.
Yeah, that projection's too high on Goddard. So
if he's the only guy out there.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you just can't project that, though. That's the thing. He's
his projected ceiling is 29 points.
He broke so you got 30 last week. Before that, he broke 15 once, twice, 3 times in 17 games. So, like, how's that his median projection? Not shitting on the projection. I'm just saying in general. Well, that's the whole point of projections. Why you should use them as a piece of the puzzle to look at them is Bowers at 10 and Goddard should be like 11. and yet it's going to be 5-1 on the ownership, and Bowers can crush him this week.
Well, I know why that the projection is so high. If I go into, let's see, the tools here.
We move the market share around. Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying that again. I'm not shitting on that part of it.
I'm guessing that the market share is like 35-40%.
For sure. And I get that. And everyone should get that. I just want people to know that's why it's also like you can finagle it however you want. The real history and stuff that I would bring in, real sample size of like 20 games.
Yeah, but we don't have a real sample size of him being the lead receiving option with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith not playing. We don't have that.
You're never going to get that. Even the 20 games is small enough for the other side. I'm just saying when I'm projecting a median projection, it's hard to give a guy 15 on paper like that.
Let's see. Yeah, we only have him at a 26% market share of the Eagles offense. Johnny Wilson. Good God.
Yeah, that's what makes it seem easier to turn up that market share on Goddard.
Well, I feel like that's conservative. I would actually, like, if I went in and customized this, I'd put him at like 40%.
What did he end up having last week?
In terms of market share?
Yeah.
Well, Devonta Smith played for 90% of the game.
I feel like he went out much earlier, didn't he?
I think it was the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter.
I thought it was much sooner, but
no, because they were trying to stage their comeback, and he got absolutely mollywopped over the middle.
Yeah, he wasn't doing much anyway, so it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt otherwise.
No, but he was going to have one of those like 9 for 98 games is where he was going.
Yeah.
So Goddard rates out the best. Parkinson, Gesicki, and Elijah Higgins are next up.
Yeah, also the chalk tight end is like the worst play on the planet next to the chalk defense.
I agree with you.
So that's the other angle of it is just if that beats you, it beats you, but it does hurt when it happens. I get why it's there some cases, but like the Tommy Tremble one is tougher to imagine. You know what I mean?
It's funny because the Tremble doesn't even rate out all that well in terms of points per dollar.
Yeah, he's $2,700. I think that's all it is. And when people are stacking that game, he's just going to be a piece they go to.
Like, is he any better than Hayden Hurst?
Oh, it's even worse, by the way, when the chalk tight end or like a guy that's getting any kind of love is cheap as well, because then there's just so many dudes that can beat him high, low, little bit more money, whatever it might be. So yeah, tight end is going to sort of be for me this week, wherever my stacks get me to.
Okay. Defenses?
What do you see there?
In terms of defenses?
Like, yeah, is there anything that stands out to you from ownership or any that you like based on the spot that they're in? I'm just trying to look at a couple of them. It looks to me like...
The Rams are probably going to be the highest.
Yeah, that's
the Rams, Packers, Texans is where I would guess. Or the Jets if people pay up.
I got Rams and Texans up there, and then the Jets pretty close. Seeing a little bit of Green Bay love after, what is it now, a couple big weeks for them too. Last week ended up being...
If you go down the list, I'm just trying to figure out which ones I'd be comfortable playing. I would play the Patriots against the Niners at $2,400. If I would play them over Carolina, Denver, maybe not Washington, because the Arizona call last week, I guess you weren't on the show, so you weren't a part of that discussion. It was my whole point that if everyone is stacking up this game, just use the $2,300 Cardinals defense if you're not stacking up the rest of it.
Yeah.
And they scored a touchdown, and then they took it off the board for still reasons unknown. Like, it was there. It worked, and that just didn't work.
Yeah, so I wasn't on the show last week, but I did do the review show, just looking at some of the winning lineups and stuff, going through that as well. And that's what I was trying to explain to people. Like, sometimes the defense becomes a free square, not for the result you're going to receive, but the way we build lineups and the people are learning from us how to build them. It was like, for example, if you didn't play Akers last week and you didn't play Tank Dell for leverage off of him, or Nico Collins or Diggs or anybody, which no one was really going to, and you just happened to land on the Minnesota defense, it just makes sense. They're already at home in a good spot. It's not like they're a terrible D, but you're not playing the chalkiest guy on the slate in Cam Akers. You may as well just play the D against him. And that worked. And your point on the Arizona one is way you can do it too. It was the week before that, actually, where they were against... Was it Tampa or Buffalo? I forget who Arizona was against the week before that, but it was the same thing. They were $2,300. The Rams, sorry. Yes, and everyone was on one of, the running backs, the wide receivers, whoever, with all the injuries there, who it's going to be. If you weren't playing any of those guys, you can just land on it. It doesn't mean the result you're going to receive is a free result, but it's like your lineup construction should sort of just be whoever the defense that plugs in, and sometimes it's just what makes sense.
So here's a few that you can go with. The Bucks at home against Philly, I think is a nice spot.
2,700, yeah.
Just if everyone's going to be out. Jalen Hurts, no stranger to giving the other team the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Vikings. The Vikings have the best defense in football right now. They're either going to play Malik Willis or presumably a banged-up Jordan Love. They're blitzing from everywhere. They're getting a ton of pressure. Like, no, Love is back. The Packers are unbeatable again. Like, give me the Vikings here, man. 2,900?
Yeah, I like that. I also don't hate everything we just talked about for when you talked about Tampa.
Oh, and Bears. Bears $3,100. That's a must play.
Bears?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Jacksonville is the same price, and that would fit the mold of if you just land there and you're not playing Akers, you're not playing the Stroud side of things. Stroud threw what, 2 picks last week? First time he's thrown 2 picks, or
Against the Minnesota D.
so yeah, like I just little things like that I'm looking at. What was the Bears take you had? You said 3,100, but just to going against the Rams?
Yeah. The Bears D is a good fantasy defense.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. They're there as well.
If there's a way you could get up to Pittsburgh, that feels like. I thought this was surprising. Where are the Steelers? $3,300. Actually, they're only $3,300. Like, I have them rated as the number 1 D of the week.
Yeah, they've been very consistent.
They're Pittsburgh's D, and they're playing Anthony Richardson.
They're averaging over 10, I think, so far this season.
And now they're playing Anthony Richardson, the league leader in interceptions.
Yep, phony.
He only throws the ball 10 times a game.
Phony Tony, baby.
He throws this many picks.
Yeah, you know, I like that. But yeah, I think in general that there's a lot of options. So that's why I'm saying when we build, you can kind of just land there and see. For, you know, all use up fill up all your other spots as best you can and just land on the defense you land on and make some cases for it. Is it a leverage spot here? Well, I'm not on this stack, so I could just go with that. You know, you can land on it that way and just sort of use that as a way you just plug and play and move on.
Again, we'll have the updated cheat sheet numbers in the Saturday newsletter, so go sub to Mayo Media Network's newsletter for free down in the description right now, okay?
A few years back, the irons were the best part of my golf game. But after a swing change about 2.5 years ago, my driver's an absolute weapon at this point, but all of a sudden I couldn't hit my long irons, and even some of my short irons just were not going on the same trajectory that I always wanted them to, or at least that they used to do. So when I heard how the new PXG Black Ops irons can dramatically improve my game, of course I had to give them a try, anything to improve my golf game. So I called up PXG and I got my current irons and I took the PXG Irons Challenge and it has been amazing. The consistency off the club face is unparalleled to any club that I have ever used. Best thing about these irons is because I feel so comfortable that I'm gonna hit the sweet spot on them, I can control the club face, the high, the low, the cut, the draw, no problem. And the new PXG Black Ops irons are the game improvement missile launchers that are going to give you explosive distance, and it's going to feel softer than a baby bunny. The new Black Ops irons are incredibly easy to hit and maximize performance and fun, because getting better is fun. Oh, and they're only $149.99 a stick. That's a great price for a great golf iron. Take the PXG Irons Challenge. It's a ton of fun, and if PXG's new Black Ops irons don't outperform your current irons by delivering either more distance or tighter dispersion, that means better accuracy, during your fitting, you'll get a $100 MasterCard rewards card. Hurry! This offer ends October 7th. Book your fitting today at pxg.com. That's pxg.com. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Supercharger, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Time to build some lineups. You want to start with the optimal?
Yeah, what do we got for the optimal this week? Jaden Daniels and then
Jaden Daniels and Bijan Robinson. I thought for a second it said Brian Robinson, but it doesn't.
we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
We will. I like that move. But yeah, Jaden, Bijan, Mason.
Okay.
Dortch, Deontay Johnson, Rashee Rice as the receivers.
Okay.
And then Colby Parkinson, Dallas Goedert, the double tight end special with Raiders D is the optimal lineup this week per projections. But obviously Deontay Johnson, who knows? Bijan did pop up with an injury himself. I think he's going to be fine. I don't like this lineup.
No, me neither. Interesting, two tight end. I don't think we've seen that yet this season, which it was more popular last year. And pricing still dictates that you can get there because obviously what it boosts the rest of your lineup, lets you get the top quarterback on the slate mixed with two really good running backs. It's just whatever. It fits it in, but there's going to be wide receivers that pop up in that price range too. So,
well, do you just want to rebuild this and make this a Arizona-Washington game stack, which is going to be the most popular one of the week?
we could start there, yeah.
Let's do that. Do you want to start with the Daniels side?
Yeah, that's the one to talk about.
Who do you put him with? Obviously, like Terry McLaurin is the very clear answer to this because of the big game that he had on Monday night. I actually feel like this might be a fade spot of Washington.
That's what makes it interesting because Jaden Daniels is going to be popular, but are people just going to play him naked? Because he's obviously fine to play that way. It's really hard to pick who he's going to go to. I don't think you have to force it, but
can we just play Daniels and Robinson and hope they score all their rushing touchdowns?
Yes. That's why I laughed earlier when you said Bijan. I said, we'll talk about that. It's like, I guess like you put together with Brian Robinson, which is crazy because he's 6,100 too. But
and there's potential, like probably no Eckler in this game.
Mm-hmm.
That means Jeremy McNichols is the backup. So Brian Robinson's market share of targets probably goes way up too and gets utilized in the receiving game as well. So like one off, I think he's a great play. Paired with Daniels, I don't think is crazy either.
What was very low but consistent. Zach Ertz is 4,000. He got he's getting 4 or 5 targets, whatever it might be, and catching 8 to 10 points. If you just want to bury your tight end slot and just say, I'll just use that up for 4K and make it with my quarterback, hope he gets you that 12, 15 point game. But again, don't know if that's going to be enough.
Does this lineup work better with Kyler as the quarterback and Brian Robinson as one of the running backs?
I think it's actually fine both ways. To your original point, especially Eckler, potentially out, it's going to be Daniels to Robinson could be the checkdowns as well as take up the whole end zone. When you're up there, you feel pretty safe. One of them is just going to run it in.
So if there's no McBride in this spot and Marvin Harrison's kind of banged up, do you just play Marvin Harrison and hope that works out? Like their corners, Washington's corners are terrible.
Yeah, that's definitely a play at 70. It doesn't matter. 7,500, you fit him in.
Like just even do that. Daniels, Robinson, Marvin Harrison.
Yep.
Now we have $5,000 left per player.
And just start filling it out with some of these value plays that you like.
Akers?
Yep.
So Akers is $5,300 this week. Now there is a chance Dameon Pierce could still play. And if Dameon Pierce plays, I think Akers ends up as the higher end of that split because he is coming off a hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. But I think Pierce will take a significant amount away from him.
Yeah, have to factor that in at that time.
Also, Cam Akers sucks, so there's
5,300. Yeah, that's
like if there was a way that you could go that where you didn't have to play Cam Akers, I would much prefer that route.
Which will be, again, when do we get the Ford news, like you said, or situational stuff like that, where you can find your way around it.
I don't want to put Akers in this. I want to play Chuba Hubbard instead.
All right, let's do that.
He's 5,700. I'll find the money elsewhere.
Okay.
It might have to be playing some like loser wide receivers, but that's where we're going to have to go.
What about Mike Gesicki?
What's up with people in Gesicki?
I just think for this game, if you're going to get a piece of it, the secondary stack, unless you like a different wide receiver that you want to play as a one-off. But my thing is this, and I stand by it. It won't always work out. I'll be wrong plenty, but I don't like Jamar Chase as a one-off. I want him in Dalton's, or I want him in.
I like Higgins as
Burrows.
a one-off. Like we even saw last week, like where we saw Yoshivas end up being the red zone target in weeks 1 and 2 with Higgins on the sideline. That all flipped back over. Higgins should have had 3 touchdowns on Monday night.
Yeah, and he's cheaper, 5,900. It's like you can get away with it, even if he does have a bigger game and it does help Burrow. You kind of hope that it's not the big game, but it's just for your secondary stack. It's enough to give you the points you need.
Yeah, I mean Zach Moss is another option in that game as well that I think is perfectly legit, and he clearly has the lead in that backfield over Chase Brown right now. I was trying to figure out a way to work in.
Well, I don't think it would be impossible. And again, nobody plays this, so it'd be super unique. And you could do just whatever the chalk you wanted the rest of your lineup is if you played Hubbard versus Moss. Big total, 47.5. Everyone wants pieces of this game through the air. But even if there is pieces through the air, you don't know, is it going to be Chase, Higgins, Yoshivas, Gesicki? Is it going to be on the other side? Like you said, trying to pick that loser wide receiver, or if it is Deontay Chalk, do you want that versus Hubbard actually catches passes. Moss can catch a few passes. The point is they can rack up some points, but also just what if the scoring happens on the ground and you pick up your points in the game that way? Now you overstack the passing attack of the Washington, Arizona, or a different game that you like for the passing attack as well.
So Najee Harris was another one I was looking at $5,600 because Jaylen Warren, unlikely to play, or if he does play, severely limited. Then you're dealing with like Cordero Patterson, but you can run all over the Colts. DeAndre Swift did not run all over the Colts, unfortunately for me last week when I kind of went down that road because he's terrible. They might just not play him again. They might be playing Roshan Johnson this week at starting instead of DeAndre Swift because he's been so bad. But Steelers D with Najee Harris would be a route that I'd want to go down. So I have this as Daniels, Brian Robinson, Marvin Harrison as that stack for that game. Hubbard with Zach Moss.
Okay, let's do that.
And then Steelers D.
The only thing was, do you want to just take play Higgins and move Zach Moss to Najee with Steelers D and see how that fills out?
Sure, let's try that.
Because you like that anyway, and that makes sense to me.
I believe they're all $5,900. Najee's 56.
So
we have $4,700 left now for a wide receiver and a tight end.
Yeah, let's try that. And that uses that up.
Don't love where it gets us with wide receiver.
The only thing is you need like a...
You have Leggett at 48, but you probably don't need that money for the tight end.
That's the problem.
Who's your favorite of the pay down tight ends?
I think you'd have to go like Elijah Moore with Bowers.
Ooh, I don't like that at all.
You can get to...
is this a game like Elijah Higgins is $3,100? We already have pieces of this game. I don't really want to play him, but there's no one else down there that I care about.
You can play, well, it's perfect money for Dortch Goddard or Michael Wilson Goddard.
Oh, Michael Wilson Goddard makes way more sense.
And then you just get, I know people like usually don't stack that way because you're getting two Arizona guys without that quarterback, but the point would be you're getting Jaden Daniels in one other play is always fine anyway. So it's really the same. Well, still projects pretty well, but how much is Kyler Murray? He's 300 more. We won't have that. We need $200 more.
We need $200 more?
Yeah.
We could probably find that by dropping Higgins into like Shaheed or something like that.
Easily, yeah. If you want to go a different route, you could definitely...
Or you drop Najee into Akers, and that actually does free up exactly $300, I think. We didn't talk about Connors as a part of this lineup. Just trying to see Amari Cooper, Drake London, Keenan Allen. That doesn't make a ton of sense.
So that lineup was only like 10 points off our optimal. And obviously it stacks way nicer. It makes more sense. A lot of stuff going into it. So yeah, it's a good starting point.
So yeah, Daniels, Robinson, Hubbard, Marv, Higgins, Michael Wilson, Goddard, Najee Harris, and Steelers D.
Yeah.
If we did, the problem is I was just looking at some of the punt tight ends, and with the way that we've constructed this lineup, even if we get to like a 31, 3,000, 2,900, it doesn't really leave us with anyone at wide receiver. You fall into this range where the best receivers are Cooper, London. If you had $100 more, you could have Ayuk, which would be a little bit better. But like Michael Pittman, you really want to play Michael Pittman?
Not really.
You know who we could have thrown in this lineup is Terry McLaurin.
I'm trying to see if there's a way to get to that with flipping it to Kyler. That's actually what I was just building right now.
So you can take Higgins out and turn him into McLaurin. And then you take Jaden Daniels out, turn him into Kyler Murray. And then you take Najee.
But do you want Robinson and McLaurin?
You take Najee and turn him into either Shaheed or Carson Steele or Romeo Doubs. There's a bunch of guys in the flex. It's like 5,500. You can play Jennings is another one.
How much is Najee again?
Najee's 56. Actually, Jennings is 56 as well, and so is Deontay Johnson. But Shaheed is 55.
Man, that's what I was trying to figure out what the chalk version would be. Because if people are going to play Deontay, I was thinking you could still do what you had earlier and keep pretty much the exact same lineup. Oh, you're $100 short.
Well, you know what you could do here?
Damn.
If you take Hubbard out and put Najee in that spot, you then have enough money for Hubbard or enough money for Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I can't find $100 on this lineup. That's the issue. I almost had the perfect secondary with everything to go with it, but...
Let's see, Harris, and then... Well, I lost my... Once I took out Higgins, I lost my Bengals guy.
Do you like Shaheed? No, we are... Well,
Yeah, I like Shaheed. I think Shaheed's a play every week, like I said.
Trying to see if there's somebody else there, but this is the closest version I could get to something you would like. It does project 3 points better, and it was Kyler with Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison. You keep your Brian Robinson play on Washington and go away from McLaurin. Mm-hmm. You get the secondary stack in the Cincy Carolina game of Zach Moss with Deontay Johnson, and then you get Shaheed with the Pittsburgh D. Obviously, I was trying instead of Shaheed to get the $100 more for Najee to play him with the Pittsburgh D, but that kind of covers a lot of the spots and games that we talked about, and it still gets you a more conventional 3-1 stack on the Arizona run back side as Robinson, like you said, could just be the guy. Obviously, it's a good spot anyway. This lineup has a little bit of ownership, but because of guys like Shaheed, Michael Wilson,
Deontay Johnson.
Harrison, all that. Yeah, he got the ownership, but I'm saying there's 3 or 4 pieces in here that aren't getting owned at all. So you still have a unique lineup just putting some of these plays together.
I like this lineup.
I think it's fine. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I was trying to get back to your original of wanting Najee with Pittsburgh, but yeah, I'm good with this too.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to have Najee with Pittsburgh.
I wonder.
I like Pittsburgh's D independently of playing Najee Harris.
Yeah, if you do flip it and move Kyler back to Jaden Daniels and put Harrison back into wide receiver position, then I can get to Najee with him.
Yeah, I don't think it's enough that you need to go out of your way to try to rejig it that way. Like either you like Kyler or you like Jaden Daniels, just go with the one that you like the best.
Yeah, and how much was Terry again? Terry is
5,800.
Oh, that's the other thing too. You lose the chalk, but you do get that as well. So this projects pretty good actually.
So what is it?
If you leave, so you go now. It's a 3-1. Sorry, it's a 5-man stack. It's Jaden Daniels with Brian Robinson and Terry McLaurin, with Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson. So there's your starting 5-point.
Okay.
Then you've got Dallas Goedert at tight end as a one-off. You've got Najee Harris with the Pittsburgh D, and that leaves you Zach Moss money for Cincy. So I mean, that's a good build on paper.
So Moss and Najee. Yeah, there we are.
So again, just another way to do it. It projects nice. It's got some lower owned pieces in it, but you're putting together some of the chalk the way you'd want. But it's like Michael Wilson over Dortch, who you liked, instead of going to, you have no Carolina guys in there actually. So just avoid the whole mess, right? If you want to.
How crazy is it that we've come not even full circle, but it's been 2 weeks now. It's like, gotta play the Carolina guys.
Yeah, it's just the way it goes. That's,
Like, do they have huge bust potential this week?
I guess it's hard to say, but like, let's say if Deontay's in, he's going to be super high owned. Anytime a wide receiver like that, there's just so much variance. It's going to be someone else. But some people will just say, okay, I got to go to the next guy. Then, like we talked about earlier, that makes it harder because then you start burying lineups on what if it's this guy? What if it's that guy? What if it's those two together? And then you end up having where it's none of them and you just get crushed. Sometimes it's better to just avoid altogether, or even maybe Cincy defense with little Zach Moss might be the way to go as well.
Yeah, I think Zach Moss is the nice leverage spot in that game. Do you think that people are going to go full blow Burrow, Chase Higgins?
Yes.
You do?
You can definitely still get there pretty easily.
I know that you can get there, but do you think that will be one of the popular stacks? I would guess at the Carolina side, because it's so cheap, those pieces will be used a lot more.
Yeah, what do you see on ownership right now? Because I
can't flip screens, remember?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me just try and look on my end then. So Dalton is less. Currently, less people are going to Dalton for sure.
Really?
And Jamar Chase is kind of in the middle somewhere. Nothing crazy.
Do you have any particular lean on that Minnesota Green Bay game as a fantasy option?
Aaron Jones
seems to be the popular one, but why not Darnold Jefferson again?
I don't know. I'm seeing Aaron Jones kept in check here because of...
Oh, I saw he rated it as a good play.
Well, with Mason, there's, some people are playing Chuba Hubbard, Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, Brian Robinson, Cam Akers. Like he's not falling. He's fallen outside of the top 5 or 6 at least.
How much is he?
He is $6,400.
Okay. Where do you want to build up now?
Just clear the screen, you think?
Yeah, clear the screen. We'll start over.
Clear the board.
Different game.
Do you want to try the Joe Burrow stuff, or do you want to go to the Dalton side and just assume Deontay in?
I would rather play the Bengals side.
Okay, so let's do that.
So, Burrow.
You liked Higgins earlier, so we should stick with that.
Yeah, I like Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. Like, I don't think I'm not stacking up Joe Burrow if I'm not doing it with Chase and Higgins.
What about Yoshi Voss?
No.
All right.
You can do it with. I'll run it with Burrow and Chase and Higgins.
You could play Yoshi Voss.
You could play all those guys, but if this is going to work, it's those two guys who are going to score all the points, or else it's not going to work.
Well, like last week, you needed Chase and Yoshi Voss together with him. It was just on this. It was on a showdown, so it was on the Monday night slate.
Yeah, but those points don't work in a full slate. Like, that doesn't do you anything. You need to Chase, and you need to in order for Burrow to get there on a main slate, both these guys need to go up.
Last week's game would have been smashed on the main slate if you had Chase and Yoshi Voss.
How many points did Yoshi Voss score?
Didn't he get 2 touchdowns?
No, that was 2 weeks ago.
You sure? I thought that was last week.
Yoshi Voss last week was 3 catches. Oh, sorry. He had 1 touchdown, 5 for 52 and a touchdown.
Yeah, it's almost 17 fantasy points. And I think he dropped another touchdown or another one went some other way. But yeah,
No, that was Higgins who dropped all the touchdowns.
Higgins had a chance for more touchdowns too. Yeah, I'm just saying like definitely a unique stack this week would be to go with him and pick your poison between Higgins and Chase.
Oh, and look, and it saves a lot of money. So I actually think that when people stack up Burrow, Gesicki or Yoshivas ends up getting in there over Higgins. That's why I like Higgins. Like
Yeah.
Higgins independently might be a play as a piece, as a mini stack of this game because he's in that mid range. But to stack it up, people would be way too uncomfortable with paying this much money for 3 guys.
Yeah, this stack gets really
Out of control quickly.
because even when I put Deontay, which is the most obvious, that
I
people
put
just
Hubbard in.
fine. It doesn't. I don't care what you're doing. I'm caring like what other people are going to do. To answer your original question of can this stack get that popular, I don't think it can because if you put the most common dude on the slate that fits the stack, Deontay in, you only have 4,800 left, and you still need 2 running backs, a tight end, a flex, and a defense.
So
You need like cheap dudes.
So I put in Hubbard instead of Deontay, similar price but different position, and fills up one of those running back spots right away. Then we can go Steelers D, Michael Wilson. Now we're doing a little bit better. We have $5,500 left. Gesicki would make a lot of sense in this lineup, or
He's
even.
got to be a reason to why people end up on this stack to go a little bit cheaper.
Well, I mean, this is one you can throw Tommy Tremble into at 2,700. Like you're already a part of this game, just make it a 5-person stack now.
Yep.
And hopefully he can score 12 points or something. So now we're back up to 7,000 for a running back and a flex. Like it's doable.
Oh, you're fine now. You got 16. You can do whatever you want.
What do you like here? If you had just $7,000 to play around with for a running back and a flex,
What does Jordan Mason get you?
Jordan Mason gets you up to 72,
Nico
which gets
Collins.
you Nico, it gets you ETN, it gets you Debo, a bunch of like not awesome options.
I think I would just look to move off of Pittsburgh though.
You gotta play Pittsburgh.
No, who's the 20? Wasn't there someone at 29 you liked?
Probably the Bears are at 31. If you can
Yeah, like
use them instead.
so that gets me to 7,400, which is Bijan. Yeah,
Oh,
there.
perfect.
Boom. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather do something like that.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually with you on that. Well, how much is Brian, instead of using Jordan Mason, how much is Brian Robinson?
61.
61. So let's throw him in at running back.
I'm gonna take Bijan and the D out for a second. Just
So
to
that
go
gets
back
you Barkley. It's Bijan and Mason, or Brian Robinson and Barkley, Brian Robinson and Brees Hall. Brian Robinson. We could use Jonathan Taylor now that they're not playing in that game, but
I have the other one projected better by 3 points, but I would say that yeah, you're fine if you're not playing Goddard, right? You could just go to Saquon, right? I know you could do both. I told you that earlier, but I'm saying I'm looking for it right now. Goddard is owned, even though tight end's still being somewhat kept in check. He's definitely one of the highest owned tight ends, and we're already using a Tremble at 2,700 to save money. Maybe Barkley is the play there, so you get Burrow, Higgins, Chase. Run it back with Hubbard and Tremble, so a 3-2 5-man game stack. You get Saquon Barkley, Michael Wilson, Brian Robinson, and the Chicago D to round it out. Yeah.
it's not a bad lineup.
Nothing wrong with it,
Like
no.
I mean, obviously Cincinnati needs to go off for this to work, but
Yeah, but it's like I said, if those guys do, then it brings Burrow with it. You're using Hubbard and Tremble as opposed to Deontay Johnson. Your other stuff still makes sense. You actually have a
We have two-
Arizona Washington mini stack there.
Yeah.
That you're still getting a big chunk of that. Your secondary stacks out of a good game. You're just taking a couple pieces that you're honing in on, hoping you get it right because you've got Barkley and Chicago D for the rest of it.
yeah, and independently, like having Brian Robinson and Barkley, 2 guys that I have rated as the number 1 running back of the week and the number 6 running back of the week, just randomly in this lineup is very helpful.
Yeah, and you can over correlate if you want to. You could play Philly D versus Baker.
Yeah, I just like Bears D against Noah. Like I just when you take a look back, I mean, this would be interesting for your review show because I know very few people actually do this. Is try to correlate teams with 3 or more offensive line injuries and look at how the opposing defense, fantasy wise, did against them that week. Because just off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about all the defenses or all the offenses that have been down O linemen, like an extent, like a severe amount of O linemen. The opposing defense just tee off on them.
It's been a huge thing for a long time, and even the Vegas lines don't typically adapt for it. Like you'll see like O-line injuries on game day in the last 90 minutes with the inactives come out, and you just don't see any movement on it. You're like, wait, they just lost 2 of their O-linemen. Like this is going to be a challenge for them now, and then you can pick up on that. So that's another little late nugget that you can get after on Sunday mornings. But yeah, I definitely think that makes sense.
That would also leave I mean, there's one game that we should probably talk about that just I don't know what to do with. And it's the Chiefs Chargers game.
Oh, it's easy. Just fade it.
But Chiefs D.
Yeah,
Chiefs D. Like they're out Slater. They're out Alt. They're at their two best O linemen.
Yeah. I'll play Rice.
Herbert might not play.
Yeah, Rice, the Chiefs D. These would be plays for sure.
And Dobbins, maybe? Dobbins has been good every week. You miss Dobbins, and do you like Henry or Dobbins more? Just as a Ravens fan.
Henry.
Dobbins all right, man.
Didn't he suck last week? Yeah, he did. Everyone tried to tell me he was the guy again last week, and he sucked. 8 points. I think the first 2 weeks were extremely lucky as well. If you saw some of his outcomes, the Dallas Goedert outcome we gave earlier, like how that was like one play was worth 10 points.
Yeah.
He had one of those each of the first 2 weeks that really boosted his number.
Correct.
He still looked good and played good and his spot's good. I'm just saying, and the coaches want to use him, so they got him in there for. But yeah, I'm not in love with him.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like he's a giant bell curve guy. Like you're gonna be at the back end of it a lot of the time, but he has those Gus Edwards doesn't have the big play potential.
Yeah, he doesn't scare me either. That'd be a good call there. I think the one game that we didn't touch on that we should spend more on is the original take you out on the Jacksonville-Houston one. That's kind of the game to me where, yes, I see a little bit of love for Nico Collins and Stroud and Akers and whatnot, but it's what if you go to the other side of it, like you said, and just get a tournament play on.
I prefer the other side. I found that even if Tank Dell doesn't play, that figuring out the Houston side can be more difficult than I think that people give it credit for.
It's just trickier to get it right. I kind of like the not that the Jacksonville side is that much easier, but it does feel like if you wanted to play that game, that would be another way to go about it. Where if Stroud has a big game, it's probably because he got pushed in some way, shape, or form. And Lawrence has disappointed plenty, and people are all over him and that contract, and I get all of it. But it's 1 week. It's daily fantasy. That's literally the joy of it, the fun in it all. He's still throwing the ball. He threw the ball 38 times last game. Like he got
benched with the quarter to go.
Yeah,
in pure garbage time.
We could see it at 5,700. I don't hate it. I know it's tough because of the other guys that are on this slate, but how would you do it? Like, what's the sort of the stack you want to roll with?
Okay, so here are some of the options. I just brought them up. Although if anyone's watching the video version, they see the lineup that I built. It's like, oh my God, how bad is this?
Okay.
So Lawrence is 57, Kirk is 52, Brian Thomas is 54, and Brandon Strange is 31.
Yeah.
Assuming Evan Ingram doesn't play. Like Gabe Davis is the only other person that you'd put into this, but he just doesn't seem like he's very good. So, I mean, obviously, Lawrence, Kirk, Thomas is probably the way to go. If you want to save even more money and fill up that tight end slot, I guess you take out Kirk.
Do you just do it with Akers, though, you think, is what I'm saying? Like, if you...
Collins or Akers. I guess we haven't talked about Diggs at all, but Akers just makes a ton of... Like, if you do this stack, the whole reason to use this stack is hopefully it goes... Like, Lawrence doesn't need to be the highest scoring guy on the slate at quarterback. He needs to be fourth or something.
Yeah.
And brings these two guys along with him. Cam Akers does enough on the other side, and then we have 6,700 left per player if you use Chiefs D, which you don't need to.
Yeah, I was trying to see if you went your route earlier, what you would land on, but do you like Zach Moss or Chuba Hubbard better if you could only pick one? Chuba?
Yeah.
So let's just see real quick what this gets me. I'm just going to try with your Pittsburgh defense again. That leaves me 5,800 at tight end. Oh, Kelsey. No. I was trying to look at it like if you put in Chuba Hubbard, Najee Harris, the Pittsburgh D, and then get your Brian Robinson on because that way it feels use your running backs. What do you got?
I went Lawrence, Akers, Brian Robinson.
Lawrence, Akers, Robinson.
Jamar Chase and Hubbard.
Okay. Akers. I'll be behind you, but go ahead. Akers.
Brian Robinson and Rashee Rice with the Chiefs D.
Rashee Rice with the Chiefs D.
Leaves 100 on the table. We can always work that around, but now I have Chase with Hubbard.
Who was the tight end you had again, sorry?
Brandon Strange.
Brenton Strange?
Is it Brenton or Brandon?
Brenton.
Brenton, yes. There
How
is
much
right
you see
there.
on this slate?
3,100.
Okay, so that puts him in there. And then instead, you had Hubbard, Akers.
Mm-hmm. Brian Robinson.
Jamar Chase was in for who? Brian Thomas? You didn't have Brian Thomas?
No, I had Chase and Thomas.
So no Kirk.
No Kirk.
Gotcha. That's where I missed. Okay.
And then Rashee Rice.
Chase Rice and that D. Okay.
Now you can finagle this around a little bit if you really wanted to. No, actually you can't. You can't do that. I was going to see if I can bring up Jamar or Rashee Rice to Saquon, but there's no spot for it. better way to go about this?
No, I couldn't find it. I think you found the better way. That's what I was trying to get to anyway, something along these lines. And you got, what I mean by that, I was trying to get somewhere within these games that you got to. So it kind of worked out anyway.
Here's what you do. You take out Rashee Rice, you take out Chuba Hubbard, you play Deontay Johnson at receiver instead of Chuba Hubbard at flex. You throw in Saquon into the flex, and you bring Chiefs D down to Bears D. If that's like the different route you want to take it. You keep your mini stack of Chase and Deontay Johnson going back and forth with each other. And then you have Barkley. I put in Saints D. I meant to put in Bears D, but...
Who's your wide receivers now?
Brian Thomas, Deontay Johnson, and Jamar Chase.
There you go. That solves it. Deontay Johnson. And yeah, you get Barkley, and I see.
If Barkley's the guy that you like. Could be Breece Hall.
They're all sort of landing in the same zone. If you go Breece Hall, you get the Steelers D.
Yeah, which I like more. But I think I like, just in this game, I think I like Barkley more than Breece Hall.
Yeah, what would it be here? Barkley. Yeah, that's a difference.
Well, we should be good for building lineups. Obviously, I'm going to use Run the Sims to build more as the week goes along. But I did want to get your quick takes on some of these like mini stacks, just game by game. New Orleans, Atlanta, like interest level 1 out of 10 in terms of stacking or mini stack.
Yeah, I got a little bit of interest. Kamara. I also think some of the cheaper guys on Atlanta. So yeah, I would play some New Orleans Atlanta mini stacks for sure. 42 is kind of sneaky and in a dome, like we said.
Like Bijan Shaheed.
Bijan Shaheed is another good one. Yep.
Mooney Kamara.
Mooney Kamara is what I was thinking.
Yeah, but like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, like those guys, like
I guess if you landed on again, Pitts is people take it like as an indictment on this guy. We know what you said. Like he should be 2,800. He's been horrible. When I'm using a secondary stack and a tight end gets involved, I don't really care as much because tight end just busts so often. Like Goddard or bust last week. Guess what? Most people busted. They didn't have Goddard, and if they did, then great. But it's just that's the whole point. You're looking for that one that could just break it open. So that would be the hope.
I'm trying to see how much Roshan Johnson is. $4,100 on this slate. So Rams and Chicago. I like both defenses. Obviously, I like Kyron. I like Tutu Atwell as well.
I think
he's just way more expensive than he should be now. He's 4,800.
What's the other thing too? Keenan Allen's going to play and Rome might not now. It's like that's a tough one to figure out as well. So
Cole Kmet maybe.
I was gonna say maybe Kyron Williams and Cole Kmet, another version of what we just talked about with like Kamara and Pitts. That's basically the same thing, just different game.
Tutu Atwell, I feel like is in the Shaheed zone. That he is someone that you should be mixing into your GPP lineups.
I just don't like it because I knew, like last week, you knew it was going to be him, even though no one was on him because everyone was on Tyler Johnson or Demarcus Robinson or
he has
whatever else, and it ended up being him. And now that's just a roulette wheel there.
It's a roulette wheel, but I guess it's funny because you have the exact same argument that Davis had last week. It was my argument with Tutu Atwell is if you're going to try to use one of these guys, use the guy who has the highest upside, who they actually use down the field. They don't use the other guys down the field.
I thought it would have been Demarcus Robinson, if anybody.
No, but he's a 3. He's always a 3. He's a 3 when Kupp and Nakua play. He's a 3 now. He's good at that role, but it's a lot easier for him when the 1 and 2 are good players that they have to focus on.
It's what makes it a roulette wheel, though. I get it. So for your tournament lineups, you could throw it in.
He's like Tutu Atwell's like Shaheed.
But now Atwell had a good game last week, and then does he have it again?
No one's playing him again this week.
No, they're not. But I'm still thinking just logically, like, is he really going to do anything again? And against Chicago, I like Chicago D.
I think that he is going to have the opportunity to do it again because they use him on 2 routes. They use him on bubble screens to use his speed. They do use him on like jet sweeps and reverses as well, or they throw it down the field. The other guys just run 4-yard outs all game, and they have no speed.
I like the Bears D in that one.
I like the one. I put the Bears D in the last one that we played. I like the Bears D too, but those two things don't necessarily mean that Tutu Atwell can't pull in 2 60-yard catches.
He definitely can. That's why you put him in your tournament lineups, like you said.
Minnesota, Green Bay. You like Aaron Jones? Like, did we just completely overlook Jefferson, Darnold?
We didn't get to that stack. That's definitely on the list. This is a 43.5 point total. I mean, we've seen how good Darnold's been so far. He's got his guys are still cheap enough. Jefferson now had 2 games where he starts out like he's going to break the slate and then finishes at 20 points. But 20's good.
Because they're too good.
Yeah, and that's exactly. If there's any chance that can happen, and they are going up against a better defense now. Green Bay has been solid to start the season. You are going into Green Bay. I get all that, but I definitely still got interest in those guys over there.
Do you think it's Love?
I think I do, and I also think I saw Addison's going to play this week too.
Yeah,
right?
Addison's going to play some nail. I mean, I had the Darnold Jefferson nailer stack, going last week, which was great for one drive when all they did was throw to Naylor and he caught the touchdown.
And he should have caught a second one. He's the guy I thought about that. What I was saying for earlier for Yoshivas.
Yeah, he was the
had
one.
an okay game. It was Naylor who should have had the second one. And I will say that though, my Yoshivas take from last week on the Monday Showdown show was that just because this other dude comes back, so in this case Addison's back, I actually think that Naylor can still be fine. He's actually been playing the Hawkinson role. And so that's the difference, is if you bring a guy like Addison back in that they do have to keep an eye on, you could still see where Naylor can continue to play well. So I actually think he's interesting this week.
Any interest in Love? I don't.
No.
Any Green Bay receiver?
Jaden Reed.
He's 6,000.
Yeah, which makes it better for only because it's tricky. But yeah, he needs to hit a big number. So I'm not super high on him. I'm just saying that would be the one I have interest.
I just don't think there's going to be enough volume for a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Houston, we went over that. Pittsburgh, Indy. I said Harris and the Pittsburgh D. I don't know who I would. Maybe Alec Pierce gets behind the defense.
Pittsburgh is tough, man. But I would.
Would you play Fields this week? Naked Fields. Or Fields and Steelers D.
Fields Pickens with
With no one?
No one, I guess. Yeah. I was thinking of Jonathan Taylor just because his price didn't move. And I mean, he could have easily had 3 last week. He got gassed on that drive where he already got them 60 yards to get there. And then Trey Sermon came in and stole it. That would have been his third touch or second, then turning into third later on. So their O-line is so good that that's usually the case. But no one's really talking about him either. But I guess that's how you would do it. I'm not super high on that spot either.
Anyone from Denver? No.
Who's the D against them?
It's the Jets.
Yeah, there we go.
So Rodgers, Lazard?
I don't really love the stack in that as much as the Brees Hall play.
Okay. Philly, Tampa, we kind of went over that. Just the different options that you can use. Washington, Arizona, we've been over that. New England and San Francisco. I just think it's too tough with the potential return of some of these San Francisco guys. No idea how much they're going to play, how effective they're going to be. And I do think that the Christian Gonzalez thing is becoming a real thing. You can get away from him and have huge plays. DK Metcalf did that.
Yeah.
And I just think if he ends up on Ayuk, all of a sudden Brandon Jennings, if he's dropping 51 against the Pistons or something like that would be a great play. But Juwan Jennings, I think gets overlooked because of the price bump. No one expects him to do what he did again. Me either. But he just ends up in a great spot here against New England.
Yeah, I agree. We talk about it all the time. This guy that gains 4-stroke putting, he's not going to do it again. You're right.
He might gain 2.
Might gain 2 the next day. He's not going to get 3 touchdowns. He might get 1 in the 100-yard bonus and 8 catches because of the cover on the D on the other side. So yeah, I'm not against that either. And we like when the price goes up just slightly to where it's no longer best buy pricing. He's not under 5K. You got to spend a little bit more money. So yeah, I like that call.
Chiefs and Chargers. How much is Quentin Johnston?
I don't know, but he's really good now.
He's 4,900. It's just I don't know if Herbert's playing. It might be Heineke. They have no O-line. They have no defense. Would you play Carson Steele?
Yeah, I think he's fine too. But
it's Rice.
It's Rice.
Rice and Worthy? Because Worthy's running a ton of routes, man. He's 5,700.
Yeah.
He feels like another one. I'm throwing him as a part of the Shaheed, Tutu Atwell All-Stars. I think he's just a guy. He's going to have one of these 3 touchdown games. And when you got crazy.
Rice, who will get ownership no matter what here.
As he should.
You can just play Worthy and hope that that's the case.
Yep.
Right? It's like pure leverage. Same position, same team. Maybe he's the guy, and he has that upside, like you said, to be able to go off. So that's probably about it there.
Cleveland, Vegas is the other one. Myles Garrett's banged up. Raiders D's probably a play. Foreman is the big one in this game. If Ford misses,
yeah, that's what it was.
You just roll the dice with Foreman. He's a cheaper version of what you got from Cam Akers last week.
Agreed. Yes, I'm good with that. I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on that news because for some of these wide receivers we talked about where you don't want to play the values there or you don't feel as good about it, even though I wouldn't feel great about it on that spot, the price matters, the spot matters, and if Ford is actually out, that would just make it that much better.
Just trying to see if this works. Minshew, Adams, Bowers, Foreman. If you just build that as like a skeleton for your team, probably not the best game to stack up, but you do have $5,500 left. If you go down to defense and use the best of the bad defenses, which is probably the Rams, let's just say the Bears again.
Who did you put with them? Adams?
Yeah.
Bowers.
Squeaky wheel Adams again. Every second week for him, he goes off. So Minshew, Foreman, Adams, Bowers, Bears D. $6,100 left for your running back, 2 receivers, and a flex.
And what was the Bears D you said?
Yeah. We'll just shoot for upside with this one. We'll go Worthy, Shaheed, or even Tutu Atwell if you wanted.
Let's go Worthy for starters.
Yeah.
And then now that we can get expensive running back in there, we had Barkley in earlier.
We had Barkley in, but you said you like Brees Hall, right?
We could go Brees Hall.
We haven't gone Brees Hall yet, so we'll throw in Brees Hall. So you go Brees Hall, Worthy, Shaheed. You have $5,400 for a flex. That might not be enough for anyone good.
We might need to go from let's go off Shaheed and go to your boy Atwell.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we're gonna call them all a part of like the same lineage. He's 48, 61 gets us Brian Robinson.
But also it's against the defense.
Who cares?
Atwell against the D.
Here, let's take out Bears D and we'll put in
Green Bay because we're not playing anyone from Houston. We're not playing.
Packers D against Sam Darnold.
Okay.
I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. Or you know what? I liked Vikings D against Green Bay. We can go to them and free up another $200. But you can have Brian Robinson in this lineup if you use Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, Brian Robinson. And then how much was Shaheed? Too much.
Yeah, he was too much.
No matter what.
So you just leave 200 on the table.
The lineup projects horrible.
For sure.
So bad. But.
Well, it has Minshew.
Yeah.
And listen, it's going to project horrible. But we are anticipating, like, it doesn't have a Foreman real projection in if you
for
were to,
what we're anticipating. Good call. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Good setup there.
He would go from 2 fantasy points to probably like 9 or 10 fantasy points based on volume.
Yeah, that's true. All right. I like that.
There we go. That's how we ended up. The worst lineup of the week, which will most definitely be my highest scoring one.
That's how it usually goes. Yeah.
You're not on the Sunday morning show on Ship It But Hoopin'. Everyone are.
Yeah, they got the normal show 9:45 a.m. Eastern on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. Trying to get that to 10K. We crossed 8,100, I think now. So we're picking up the subs over there.
Well, we need exactly the same amount of people. So you need 2,000 to get to 10K. I need 2,000 to get to 50K. So if you're here, please sub to the channel, smash the like, and join that newsletter where I'll have the cheat sheet, all the updated injuries, and everything else. Spread shows out, best bet shows out. We're doing shows like nightly now.
Yeah.
Recap wise, the internet here is way too bad to go live, unfortunately. So that's going to be a problem. So probably no Sunday Night Live this week because we literally can't do it. I suppose, Mike, could we do audio only live? Yeah, we could do that. Maybe that's what we could do.
Maybe that's the play.
Maybe that's the move. We'll see. All right. Well, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience. Experience.